All right, people, we are back for the Battle Hub Draft League Season 4. It's crazy to think that it's been about a year since the original season. Honestly, it feels like it's been 2 years at this point. It feels so long ago, but we've continued to have more and more seasons as we've had DLCs, and of course, the original season was after Pokemon Home. But this time, we're still using the same list of Pokemon from the Indigo Disc, with the only exception being we're now allowing Pecharunt and Terapagos. So, with that, let's get into some of the other rules. So, we've changed a few things around here this season. First of all, we're keeping the same 16 coaches, one division, one draft pool system. Although we are bringing back some new coaches. I believe we've got three entirely new coaches to the league, one of which I faced before, and I think my first draft league on YouTube. Um, Very excited for that. And in addition, some other coaches from the Battle Hub Discord. Be sure to join the Discord if you haven't already. And we've also got a few returning coaches from previous seasons as well. So with that, we're going to have 115 points to draft exactly 10 Pokemon. So this is going to be the most amount of points we've had in history of the league to draft Pokemon. We figured, you know what? We scaled down all the way to 105 last time, I believe. So we're like, you know what? Let's try and bring it back up and see what we can do. Oh, wait, no, I think it was 110, then 105, then 100, something like that. Either way, we're going to have a lot more points this time. And the additional change is that instead of like a 9 to 11 or 10 to 12 Pokemon, it's just exactly 10 Pokemon. So you gotta be sure to draft carefully and keep your points in mind whenever you're trying to select those last Pokemon. So, 9-week season, top 8 advance to playoffs, though I do believe it is going to be a little bit different. It's not just going to be the top 8 will then be placed into their seeds. I think it might actually be that the top 4 get to choose their opponents. At least that was the last I heard, but don't quote me on that. So, 2 to 3 Terra Captains, total of 16 points. So, we've lowered the point total for the Terra Captains because the actual highest point value they could have a Terra Captain be is 9 points. So, we've lowered it a little bit. You can call it mid to low tier Terra Captains, basically, just to try to help those Mons shine a little bit more. And they certainly need to, because this season we are going to have fixed Terra. I know we were probably one of the last holdouts for free Terra, but I just feel like there's been so many battles, I mean, all throughout the course of season 1, 2, and 3, that have just proven to me that free Terra is not the most competitive thing. And as we get more and more competitive coaches every season, people just keep getting stronger and stronger, going up against each other. I really feel like it was a wise choice to go with the fixed Terra option. Though this time, you're able to choose up to 3 non-stab Terras, so you still get a little more choice than most leagues might give you, because you don't have to necessarily choose a stab. So you can have up to 3 new types that you can be, or you can still go with the traditional 1 stab to non-stab Terra types. So, battles are also going to be at level 100 this season. So, this is a choice that is a little bit tough for those of us that like to breed our Pokemon. I'm gonna be honest though, I've come a long way. I feel like I used to be like I would never breed my Pokemon for draft, but then I honestly I think that was before the what's it called, the Teal Mask came out, before we had the Fresh Start Mochis, because there just wasn't enough berries. It's so hard to get the berries. As long as you have the Fresh Start Mochis, that's pretty much the hardest thing. So just do some mochi runs with friends and stock up on those Fresh Start Mochis, and you'll be fine. Getting to level 100 for all your Pokemon is going to be a little bit tough, but use the Blissies and you'll be okay. Um, I myself did some BBQs, grinded up a bunch of experience points and candies, and now all my mons are pretty much level 100. So I'm set for the season. It's just a matter of resetting the EVs, but that's neither here nor there. The main reason we wanted to change it was so that we wouldn't have the moves doing quite as much damage as they would do on, like, let's say Showdown or something like that. Standard competitive play, because at level 50 it's going to be a little bit more of a range that the damage points can do. So with that, we're going to get into our first pick here. I finally managed to snag Greninja. Um, One of my favorite starter Pokemon of all time back in the XY days. This thing was all over the place. This thing got banned to Ubers at one point, which, you know, you're thinking, well, how could it get banned with 103 base special attack being its highest stat? Well, of course, keep in mind, back in the day, that was when Protean was able to change up every single time. Of course, this time, it's only going to be for the one time, but it's still a cool ability. It also has Battle Bond, which is great, so that can make it into a great late game sweeper if I wanted to run it like that. That being said, I am probably not going to be able to use my shiny Greninja that I bred this generation. I'm probably going to be stuck using either my legit Battle Bond Greninja that I got back in the what was it, the Usum demo or something like that, or the Sun and Moon demo. Or I'm probably going to have to breed a new Greninja real quick, because I don't think I actually have one in the Pokeball. So, there's that. So, that's Greninja. Let's talk about it overall, though. Very fast Pokemon, base 122 speed, has access to a very wide range of both physical and special moves. Also has access to spikes. This thing is basically a water type, the original Meowscarada, if you will. Now, I know that people like to use Meowscarada a lot more, but I like Greninja because it gives it the ability to be truly mixed. The 95 attack isn't bad, even though it is lower than 100, obviously. With the Battle Bond boost, I can be able to run some cool moves like Gunk Shot, or I'm trying to think of what other physical moves it has. I know it has them. I know it could run. I could run like a just full-on physical set with moves like Liquidation, and Night Slash, and stuff like that. But oh, and Shadow Sneak, of course. But Greninja is a very cool Pokemon. I've just wanted to use it for so long, and it's been sniped in the past few seasons. I've been trying to use it, so it's finally here. Now that I was in the 4th position, by the way, I didn't mention that earlier, but the Demolition Force was in position number 4. Lots of different change-ups. I mean, Beanard was ahead of me, which is pretty crazy to think. So pretty happy we were able to snag Greninja. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. We're going to move on now to our second pick, being Annihilate. Now, as I said, I was in position 4, so I had to wait for it to swing all the way back around to me, and I was finally able to get myself an Annihilate. In the UNPL, the best spin blocker I could get was a Dusknoir, and this is far superior to that. Just look at that bulk, 110, 80, 90 defenses with the Defiant ability. So that's going to allow me to either block Rapid Spin, or if they do defog, I get a little Defiant boost off of it. So this thing is basically just going to come in, take some damage, fire off some powerful Rage Fist. I can also run like a bulk upset with Taunt or something like that. It's got some pretty good moves. It's got Edgequake coverage. This thing also has access to Stealth Rocks, which is always a bonus for me. So Annihilate was just a really cool Pokemon that I wanted to get. Also embodies Icy Dude. I know that they still probably watch some of the League battles. I just wish that I could have gotten to battle them at some point. So we got the Never Dying Annihilates on our squad here, supporting us in spirit. So with that, we're going to continue to move on now to Metagross. Now, unfortunately, as you can imagine, 16 coaches all picking Pokemon is going to result in a large number of snipes. So, Scizor was unfortunately sniped off of me this season. Even though I got my Greninja, it just wasn't the right place for me to be able to snag Scizor. So, it was crazy because it was like right before me. But I can't blame Beanard for that because they got sniped off Corv. So that was the only other steel type that could defog, so I don't blame him. And Metagross isn't a bad option. Although honestly, I didn't originally pick Metagross. I picked our Archaludon because I was gaslit out of Jirachi slash Metagross. I didn't want to use Metagross because I was using a new NPL, and I was like, no, you know what? That Bullet Punch is too valuable. I need it. So I was like, you know what? Listen, I need that stab Bullet Punch. I made a deal with Brandon as a backdoor deal, and I was like, "Listen, bro, I think our Archaludon could be a great fit for your team." And he was like, "You know what? I've been using it pretty darn well in the SDA. So yeah, I'll get your Metagross, and then we'll trade." So he did just that. So shout out to the homie Brandon, fellow commissioner, for helping me snag this shiny Metagross here. Um, this thing also has access to Stealth Rock, so all three of our offensive Pokemon, they all have access to hazards. Um, a 95 base special attack ain't bad either. I mean, it's the same as Greninja's physical. So it can still be able to run some cool special moves if I really wanted it to. And it's just very bulky. I mean, 80, 130, 90 special defense. Very strong. Has a lot of good moves like Meteor Mash, which could miss, but also I can just run Iron Head if I want to. The Psychic Fangs, though, beautiful, beautiful psychic coverage with 85 base power. I mean, that's almost 90. You may as well call it 90 at that point. And it breaks screens, so that's great too. Of course, it has access to moves like Earthquake, Ice Punch, lots of good moves, Knockoff. So Metagross just an all-around, very strong physical attacker. And now we've kind of got our... this is a little bit unconventional. I know most of the times we try to snag Dragon Fairy Steel Cores or Water, Fire, Grass Cores, but this time we've got the Psychic Fighting Dark Core. With a little bit of Ghost thrown in for good measure. I always kind of like that offensive. I guess that's more of an offensive spread, but whatever. We were able to snag that core nonetheless. So that being said, I realized I needed to start getting a bit more of a defensive core on the team. So I was like, you know what? Let me start getting my Fire, Water, Grass core down. So with that, I decided I wanted to get Rillaboom. This mon is usually always gone by the time it comes around to me, and I'm looking at grass types. I'm getting my grass type a little bit earlier than I usually do, so I guess it makes sense. I was like, you know what? Let me snag that Rillaboom. So we now have access to terrain, so that could always be great for me. Could boost any potential grass moves I have on my other Pokemon. It will allow me to have some potential recovery on an already decently bulky team with Metagross and Annihilate. And of course, I was looking ahead, and I've come to the realization several times, but Renard really started putting this into my head about these ground type weaknesses. And I was like, well, I'm not sure what you want me to do, bro, other than just draft a bunch of Levitate Pokemon, because you just can't escape the ground weakness. Five types are weak to ground. So if I get my Steel type, my Poison type, my Fire type, which are all generally pretty essential in draft, in addition to a Electric type, that's going to mean that I've got 4 Pokemon weak to ground, and I've got to somehow get rid of that with a flying, grass, and potential bug type. So I was like, you know what? Let me just get grassy terrain and weaken those grass type moves. And I knew that in the future that would mean I'm going to probably be looking at a special attacking ground type so that I don't weaken my own ground stat. So just keep that in mind for the future. In the meantime, though, Rillaboom has access to another very strong priority type move in Grassy Glide. It also is a great U-turner. If I really wanted to, I could run like Fake Out like they do in VGC, but it also has Knockoff, Stomping Tantrum, lots of good moves. This thing could run a Bulk Upset if I wanted to. You look at its stats, 125 attacks, very strong, in addition to the 190-70 defenses, very strong, bulky Pokemon. 85 speed ain't bad either. So that's pretty good to work with, I'll be honest. This is looking pretty good. So that's Rillaboom. We'll move on now to our next Pokemon, being our first Terra Captain here, Hitmonlee. So Hitmonlee was a Pokemon that I wasn't my first pick as a rapid spinner, honestly. But I looked at it and I was like, you know what? I just drafted Rillaboom. If I was to try to use a, a rapid spinner or an unburdened sweeper, that could go with it. That would be pretty solid. I see that Hitmonlee's there. And I remember when we were going over things with the commissioner, I was looking at Hitmonlee and I was like, is that going to be too much? Do we need to bring it up to 10? Same with like Inteleon and some other stuff. And I was like, you know what? If it's there, I may as well use it. So we got this Hitmonlee, fairly strong, base 120 attack, 87 speed. All three of its Terra types have priority moves to go along with it. We got Mach Punch. I guess it also has Upper Hand as well. In addition to Bullet Punch and Sucker Punch. So you guys know I love my priority. In addition, this thing has Unburden, so it's just going to be super duper goober fast. This thing can also run like a bulk upset. Although, at this point, spoiler alert, this is going to be my only rapid spinner at this time. I might make some transactions and try to get more if it doesn't work out. But I think it'll be okay, honestly. Because at the end of the day, even if I rapid spin, I mean, it's making Hitmonlee a lot faster. I'll tell you what, I've used Komala so far in the UNPL, and that speed boost is a lot more than you realize. So giving that to Hitmonlee doesn't put it in a bad position. I can go for a bulk up, go for a rapid spin, be in a pretty solid position even without my Unburden activating. So with that then, we are now going to move on now to the next Pokemon, that being Moltres. As I said, I needed to start eliminating some of the ground weaknesses that were going to come up later. One way that I can do that is by combining my fire and my flying into one type. So I still have the fire, all while not having to worry about the ground weakness associated with it. Of course, if I roost, that comes back into play, but we'll just try to avoid that. I also needed another special attacker because right now, Greninja is pretty much my only real special attacker on the team. So I needed to start hitting hard with some more of them because I needed to beat the allegations from last season. I didn't have any good special attackers. So base 125 is pretty good. This thing will primarily be used as a wall, but I mean, flamethrowers or fire blast or anything coming out of this Moltres is still going to hit pretty dang hard. And the flame body, you can't ever discount the flame body on this thing. We're continuing the trend of having decently bulky Pokemon. So this is pretty much like a balanced team, which is my favorite playstyle. I know I used to be more of a hyper offense guy, but I mean, just setting up screens and dragon dancing and going for the win. I think that was my playstyle when I was younger and back in the XY days. But what I really like, I mean, is just having 3 offensive Pokemon, 3 defensive Pokemon, and just having a nice little chess game. That's the real heart of Pokemon to me. And if you can try to figure out your win condition and go off of that rather than just trying to set up and immediately try to sweep. I mean, that is still fun, you know? If I can try to do that at some point in the game, I wouldn't mind. I would just like to have a little bit of fun in the meantime and not just rush to it, you know what I mean? So, with that, we're going to continue on to our next Pokemon, that being Dragalge. I could really use a nice little special wall on the team because I've already got a lot of physically defensive Pokemon, like the Metagross and kind of the Rillaboom. Moltres is also typically physically defensive, so I just needed a guaranteed special wall. So, although it's not weak on the physical side either, I mean 90 physical defense is pretty decent. It also hits very hard. So we got a nice little adaptability Draco Meteor Mon on the team now. It's not going to be a Terra Captain though. It's a little bit too strong for that. But it can still serve pretty well in its role. This thing has access to Flip Turn. This thing has access to, obviously, Draco Meteor, Sludge Wave, to hit the fairies. So in this way, I'm not too weak to Fairy because I've already got Greninja and Annihilate. So now I've got 2 Fairy Resist in Metagross and Moltres. Oh, wait, but I also have a Hitmonlee, though. Like, it can tear out of it, though. But at least I'm not too weak to Fairy. Just a slight weakness. But I needed the ground and poison type as well. This solves that. I needed some more resistances to the fire, water, grass, and electric. So this kind of encapsulates all that into one. That's why I love having a dragon type, especially defensively. Because it's a pretty good defensive type if you think about it. Being able to resist all those guys. It is weak to itself and fairy, which kind of sucks. But in this case, it's not even weak to fairy. It's neutral. It is weak to ground, though, but like I said, we've got the grassy terrain, so hopefully that can support it. With that, then, we're going to move on now. Oh, this also gives me access to the T-Spikes, by the way. Although Greninja did that too, but it's another T-Spiker. So yeah, that's Dragalge, Adaptability Scroll. So with that, we're going to move on now to the next Pokemon on the team. That being Sandy Shocks. A previous opponent of ours in Season 1. I don't think it's really been used since then, at least to my knowledge. So I wanted to kind of bring it back into the limelight here. I needed a good ground type. Not only that, I needed a ground type that was a special attacker. So my earth powers are not going to be weakened by the grassy terrain. So 101 speed is honestly a pretty decent speed tier. Faster than all those mythicals, faster than all those base 90s and 80s. Pretty solid Pokemon here. 121 special attack is pretty decently strong. If I really wanted to, I could run some type of sun team, or try to use the sun with this and then activate its photosynthesis, or I can just run booster energy. This thing also gives me access to Stealth Rocks and Spikes as well, so I need another Spiker apart from Greninja, and this solves that as well. So even though its coverage isn't the best, but Ground and Electric as your stabs is pretty dang solid. I think the only thing you can't hit is like Flygon or something like that. And even then, we've got plenty of stuff for Flygon already. So I'm not too concerned about it. Oh yeah, Flygon or like Landers or something like that. But we could still hit him with like a Tri-Attack, or even we could go for Gravity with one of our Pokemon, including this one, and be able to hit him with Earth Dome. So with that, that's Sandy Shocks. We're going to keep on moving to our next Terra Captain being Lycanroc Midday. So, base 112 speed, pretty solid. Of course, we've already got the Greninja, which is one of the fastest Pokemon out there. Having a Pokemon above 110 speed, you know, those outspeed the Lotties, all those base 100s and everything around there. Pretty darn fast. 115 attack, pretty solid. We can SD up if we want to. We also have access to that beautiful Accelerock, which can be boosted by the Terra Rock, as you can see here. Terra Water is primarily going to be kind of more of a defensive play if I need to, just kind of Terra out of my weakness to water, as well as give me a way to hit ground types for sure, super effectively, because otherwise ground types kind of wall me. And of course we've got the Terra Fly to get me out of that weakness to ground. It also allows me to be able to hit grass types for super effective, so that's pretty solid. In terms of abilities, I believe I did try Sand Rush one time in Season 1 when I used this Pokemon, so I kind of buried the lead that this is a returning Pokemon from Season 1. I'll tell you what though, it didn't work out. It's Steadfast ain't bad. Actually, it is pretty bad, but it's better than Keen Eye, I'll tell you that much. But this Pokemon doesn't need those abilities to succeed. And this is a Pokemon that, in this lower tier Terra Captain League, at least mid to low, it should be even better than it was in Season 1, hopefully. So we'll see what this thing can do. And with that, we're going to now move on to our last Pokemon. I'm sure you guys can all see we're kind of missing a very key type that you need in most draft leagues. So we're going to move on now to our fairy type, that being Clefairy. So Clefairy is a Pokemon that was not my first choice, honestly. Wasn't even my second choice. I was really going for the Wigglytuff or Doxbug. Unfortunately, both of those were taken before I could get Clefairy, sorry. But it does have a role on this team, that being it's a decently bulky switch-in as a fairy type. Now, I know what you're saying, but Emerald Miner, look at this thing, 70, 48, 65 defenses, those are trash. Well, with an Eviolite, it can take a surprising amount of hits. Of course, it can't be the absolute tank of a unit that it is in VGC, with Friend Guard boosting its teammates and healing them up with Heal Pulse or using Follow Me. What it can do instead, though, is it can Wish, Baton Pass, it can Stealth Rock, it can set gravity, it can knock off, it can nightshade, it can do some stuff. It can do some stuff. Would I like Clefairy over this Pokemon? Absolutely, because then it gives me a switch into Ghost types. And it's also a Pokemon that has competitive and Frisk, which are very good abilities. Magikarp's a good ability too, though, considering that I'm forced to run a Violite. It's basically a built-in heavy-duty boots. Also means that I can tank Toxics and not have to worry about it, as long as my abilities didn't get swapped or anything like that. Um, well, that's Clefairy in a nutshell. That's pretty much the whole team here, guys. So, this is going to be our draft for Season 4 of the BHGL. We got a lot of tough competition out. And we're going right up against Pokemaster, who we have not faced since Season 1. So that's going to be a very epic battle. And we've got a lot of familiar faces that we're going up against. Let me tell you right now, we're going up against Scorpion later. We're going to be also facing some new coaches like Anna right off the bat in week 2. It's going to be a crazy season, folks. So y'all best strap in for what I hope is going to be our best season yet. So stay tuned, and we'll see you guys in the next Scarlet and Violet Wi-Fi battle.